The clock ticked past midnight. 7-year-old Lily stirred in her sleep. A strange feeling tugged at her. It whispered of unseen eyes and cold dread. She opened her eyes. The room was dark, lit only by the moon's soft glow. Lily sat up in bed, her heart pounding. Something felt wrong, terribly wrong. Her small hand reached for her favorite teddy bear. It provided little comfort. The feeling intensified, sending shivers down her spine. Then she saw it. In the corner, darker than the surrounding darkness, a figure began to form. It rose slowly, solidifying from the shadows like smoke. Terror, raw and consuming, gripped Lily's young heart. It was tall and skeletal, its edges blurring against the darkness. But its darkness was wrong somehow. It wasn't the absence of light, but a void swallowing all light around it. Lily's breath caught in her throat. The figure moved closer. Its form became clearer. It was humanoid, but distorted, as if viewed through a broken mirror. In its hand it clutched something long and thin, a knife-like object radiating the same chilling darkness. Lily's mind, young as it was, struggled to comprehend what her eyes were seeing. It felt evil, this creature of darkness. A predator here in her room, in her sanctuary. She tried to scream, to call out for her mother, but terror had stolen her voice. The darkness seemed to swallow her cries, leaving her in a suffocating silence. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing in her ears like a drum. Her small body was paralyzed, trapped in the grip of an unseen force. She could feel the weight of the fear pressing down on her, making it impossible to move even a single muscle. It was as if the very air around her had turned to stone. Tears welled up in her eyes, blurring her vision. She blinked rapidly, trying to clear her sight, but the tears kept coming. Each drop felt like a tiny shard of glass, cutting into her cheeks as they rolled down. The Shadow Man, for that's what it was, glided closer. Its movements were smooth, almost graceful, yet filled with an unnatural menace. The closer it got, the colder the room seemed to become, as if it were drawing the warmth out of the very air. Each silent movement sent chills down Lily's spine. She could feel the goosebumps rising on her skin, a physical manifestation of the terror that gripped her heart. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps, each one a struggle against the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. It stopped just a few feet from her bed, its empty void where a face should be, seeming to stare down at her. The darkness within the shadow seemed to pulse, as if it were alive, watching her with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, wishing, praying for it all to be a bad dream. She clutched her blanket tightly as if it could somehow protect her from the horror that loomed over her. Her mind raced, searching for any way to escape the nightmare that had become her reality. But the feeling of dread, the oppressive presence in the room, only intensified. It was as if the very walls were closing in on her, trapping her in a cage of fear. The air grew thicker, harder to breathe, and the shadows seemed to grow darker, more menacing. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own bed. The room that had once been her safe haven now felt like a prison, each corner hiding unseen terrors. She longed for the comfort of her mother's arms, but knew that no one could save her from the darkness that had claimed her. A sob escaped her lips. "Mummy!" She finally managed to cry out, her voice a choked whisper. The bedroom door creaked open and a sliver of light from the hallway spilled in. Lily's mother, her face etched with concern, rushed to her bedside. "Lily, honey, what's wrong?" But Lily couldn't answer. Her eyes darted to the spot where the Shadow Man stood. It hadn't moved. It hadn't reacted to her mother's presence at all. It was as if it didn't even see her. Lily's mother, oblivious to the figure of darkness, sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her daughter close. "It's just a bad dream, sweetie," she soothed, stroking Lily's hair. "Mommy's here now." But Lily felt no comfort. Her eyes remained fixed on the Shadow Man. He hadn't moved, and then a horrifying realization washed over her. Her mother had walked right through him. Time seemed to stand still. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Lily, still paralyzed by fear, watched as the Shadow Man lingered. It seemed to study her, its presence a suffocating weight in the room. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the Shadow Man began to dissipate. It melted back into the darkness, becoming one with the shadows once more. The oppressive weight lifted, the air no longer thick with dread. Lily's mother, unaware of the terror her daughter had just experienced, eventually tucked her back into bed. She sat with her until sleep finally claimed her. But the night held no more peace for Lily. Years passed. Lily grew older. The memory of that night faded, becoming a hazy nightmare, easily dismissed. But the feeling of dread, the chilling certainty that she'd been watched by something evil, never truly left her. It wasn't until she was much older, browsing through a bookstore, that a book cover caught her eye. The vibrant colors and intricate design stood out among the rows of books, drawing her in with an almost magnetic pull. She felt an inexplicable connection to it, as if it was calling out to her. It depicted a shadowy figure eerily similar to the one from her childhood. The figure seemed to be shrouded in mystery, its form barely discernible, yet hauntingly familiar. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had seen it before in the darkest corners of her memories. The title read, "Shadow People, Harbingers of Doom." The words sent a shiver down her spine, evoking a sense of dread and curiosity. She wondered if this book held the answers to the questions that had plagued her for so long. Lily felt a chill run down her spine. The memories of her childhood encounters with the shadowy figure flooded back, more vivid than ever. She could almost feel its presence lurking just out of sight, watching her. She bought the book, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and morbid curiosity. As she handed over the money, she couldn't help but feel that she was about to uncover something profound, something that would change her understanding of the world forever. As she delved into its pages, she found countless stories, chillingly similar to her own. Each account was a piece of a larger puzzle, painting a picture of a hidden world that existed just beyond the veil of our reality. The more she read, the more she felt connected to these otherworldly experiences. People from all walks of life, from all corners of the globe, reported encounters with these shadow beings. Their stories varied in detail, but shared a common thread of fear and fascination. It was as if these entities transcended cultural and geographical boundaries, touching the lives of many in inexplicable ways. The descriptions were consistent, dark, shadowy figures, often seen holding weapons or lurking in the periphery of vision. These beings seemed to exist on the edge of our perception, always just out of reach, yet undeniably present. The more she learned, the more she realized that her childhood fears were not just figments of her imagination, but part of a much larger, more terrifying reality. Some researchers speculated they were interdimensional beings, accidentally crossing over into our reality. These beings, often referred to as shadow people, have been the subject of countless stories and theories. Their elusive nature and the fear they instill have made them a topic of fascination and dread. Some believe that these entities are not just accidental visitors, but have a purpose, a mission that remains unknown to us. They appear in the peripheries of our vision, in the darkest corners of our homes, and in the most desolate places, always just out of reach, always watching. Others believe them to be negative entities, feeding off fear and despair. These shadowy figures seem to thrive in places where human suffering is most intense. Abandoned buildings, dark alleyways, and overgrown cemeteries are their preferred haunts. Witnesses often report a sudden drop in temperature, an overwhelming sense of dread, and the feeling of being watched. It's as if these entities draw energy from the fear they create, growing stronger with each encounter. The more terrified the witness, the more powerful the shadow person becomes. There were even theories linking them to alien life forms, conducting strange and unsettling experiments on unsuspecting humans. Some ufologists suggest that shadow people are a form of extraterrestrial life, using advanced technology to cloak themselves in darkness. These theories propose that the shadow people are here to study us, to understand our fears and weaknesses. They might be gathering data for some unknown purpose, perhaps even preparing for a larger invasion. The connection between shadow people and UFO sightings has been noted in several cases, adding another layer of mystery to their existence. Whatever their true nature, one thing was clear: encounters with shadow people were rarely benign. Those who have come face to face with these entities often describe a sense of malevolence, as if the shadow person is deliberately trying to instill fear. The encounters are brief but impactful, leaving a lasting impression on the witness. The shadow people seem to enjoy the terror they create, feeding off the negative emotions they provoke. It's a haunting experience that stays with the witness long after the shadow person has disappeared. Witnesses often describe feelings of intense fear, dread, and a sense of being watched long after the encounter had ended. The fear is not just a momentary reaction but lingers, affecting the person's daily life. They become hyper-aware of their surroundings, constantly looking over their shoulder, expecting to see the shadow person again. The sense of being watched never truly goes away, creating a persistent state of anxiety. Some witnesses even report nightmares and insomnia, unable to escape the terror even in their sleep. Lily closed the book, her mind reeling. The stories she had read were eerily similar to her own experiences. She had always dismissed her childhood encounters as nightmares, but now she wasn't so sure. The descriptions of shadow people matched what she had seen. The dark figures lurking in the corners of her room, watching her with unseen eyes. The realization that her nightmares might have been real was both terrifying and validating. She wasn't alone in her experiences, others had seen them too. The childhood nightmare she had tried so hard to forget was suddenly a terrifying reality. She was not alone. The shadow people were real and they had been watching her for years. The thought sent chills down her spine. She remembered the fear she felt as a child, the sleepless nights, the constant feeling of being watched. It all came rushing back, more vivid than ever. She realized that the shadow people might still be out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to reappear. And the knowledge that these shadow people might still be out there, lurking in the darkness, sent a shiver down her spine that no amount of sunlight could ever chase away. The fear was a constant companion, a shadow that followed her everywhere. She knew she had to be vigilant, to stay aware of her surroundings. The shadow people were real, and they were watching. The haunting reality of their existence was something she could never escape, a dark presence that would always be a part of her life.